Here to explain how you can break the chains that bind your supply chain is Angie Babin, Vice President, Retail Solutions with Manheim. Please give her a warm welcome.
Welcome, and thank you for attending Break the Chains That Bind Your Used Vehicle Supply Chain. Hi, I'm Angie Babin. I'm the VP of Retail Advantage at Manheim, and I'm here to share this with you today. I've been in the auto industry for over 20 years, and I like to say I have somewhat of a colorful automotive background. I've seen a lot of different areas within the automotive industry, so that gives me an interesting perspective. However, what I'm going to be sharing with you today is actually one of my true passions. So as we get into this, let's take a look at the objectives. So we're going to look at the gaps. We're going to find them. We're going to prioritize them and what your used vehicle supply chain operations are. Now, obviously, with the entire life cycle, there's risk, there's costs, and we're going to calculate those in a few of our slides. We'll be able to show you best practices, industry-leading best practices on how to overcome some of these challenges, and then help you redevelop shop operational processes if that's necessary. But as we look at processes, it'll be good for you to have the ability to review what you do today and see if there's any way to actually enhance those. So we know that speed, simplicity, and efficiency are actually key factors in selling more used vehicles and thus making higher profits. So who of you would like to sell more vehicles and increase your profitability? I know I would. Well, some of the key factors in doing this means you have to maximize speed, simplicity, and efficiency. And that'll help you sell more used vehicles and have higher profit potential. Now, there's cost-effective ways to stock your lots, and that will allow you to focus on customers and selling more vehicles. But how do you master these challenges? Well, it's important to have industry-leading practices and great operational procedures from the whole life cycle. So when we look at it, we're going to look at acquisitions to transportation. And then once it's transported, we go into the retail reconditioning, inspections, reconditioning, detail, merchandising of the vehicle. And then is there storage that's needed? And then maybe transportation is actually needed again. But why is this important for us to talk about this now? Well, I think we're all very familiar with the current state of the industry. There's more used car sales expected, and we continue to see that increase. Off-lease volumes are going to be very high. The OEMs tell us to not only expect that this year, but in the coming years as well. And now with off-lease volumes high, that gives you a lot of opportunity with CPO vehicles, right? And with CPO vehicles, we can actually get higher profitability and higher customer satisfaction. So let's take a look at how many used vehicle sales we've had. Well, in 2015, we had 40 million used vehicles sold, which was 2.3 times more than new cars. Well, I'm sure you're probably saying 2015, what about 2016? Just to clarify, speaker presentations were due in October of 2016, so we had 2015 data. But we did not have a full 2016 data. But I do have that number, and I think we're all very familiar with 2016 used car sales hit another record of about 41 million sales. It's about the same ratio as new cars. New cars hit about 17.5 million. And with 2017, we're looking at new cars still staying around the 17.5 million mark. So with all of these new cars available, what can you do to capture more of these sales? Well, obviously, process enhancements and efficiencies are going to allow you to capture more of these sales. And that's really where you need to start. So in a study, we found that 72% of dealers manage all wholesale buying activities internally. So if we have speed, simplicity, and efficiency, and that all relates to our back-end processes, we can actually help you increase your profit potential. So it's always good to review your processes internally and see where you can increase them and where they're doing absolutely great. So in looking at the processes, let's really start with the used vehicle life cycle. So this has been described to me by one person as an intricate dance to get the vehicle from acquisition to the retail lot. And I guess we could call it a lot of things, but it is very challenging. So we know this. You have to source your vehicles, you have to find them, and then you have to actually go acquire the vehicle. Then you have to transport them. How long does it take you to arrange transportation? And then how long does the transportation actually take? Then what about reconditioning? Where are you going to recondition the vehicle? So once you decide that, then we'll look at your retail inspection process. Then from there, once the inspection's done, what do you want to do to recon the car? What's necessary, what's not? And then once you get it into reconditioning, how quickly can you recondition the vehicle? Once it's ready to go, you can't just put it on the lot until you merchandise it, right? Stickers, keys. What about images and getting them online? We have an exciting part to talk about on that as well. And then transportation and storage, and then getting it to the retail lot. So we're going to dive into each of these areas to see how we can help you increase your speed, simplicity, and efficiency to get more sales. But first, let's take a look at the wholesale value chain. So we looked at it from acquisition to getting it to the retail lot. Industry experts tell us that this entire wholesale value chain is actually a full 28 days. Now, how did they come up with that? Well, if you look at each category, they looked at the time. Sometimes it's hours, sometimes it's days. So if we look at a few of them, we have inventory identification. So how long did it take you to source your vehicles? How long did it take you to find your vehicles? Then how long did it take you to actually acquire the vehicles? From there, what about inspections? How long does that take? Recon, how long does it take you to recon the vehicle? Transportation, what about merchandising? And then what about inventory management? And now it's ready for sale. We're saying on average that takes approximately 28 days. And of course, this is just an average, but that is definitely a good number to start with. The interesting thing is, if you allow it to take 28 days, how much is that costing you in holding costs? Again, industry experts tell us that the average holding cost is $26 a day. Well, I've seen a lot of things lately from other industry experts that tell us it's really probably more around $35 a day. In fact, just recently I saw a few articles that said it could be anywhere from $40 to $50 a day. So there's a range, but let's stick with the $26 a day for this example. So if you keep a car for 28 days before it's available for sale, and your holding costs are $26 a day, that's costing you $728 before you even have it ready for sale. Now, let's say just for fun, your holding costs are a little bit more around the range of $35 a day. Well, at 28 days, that puts you right at $1,000. It's actually $980. So speed, simplicity, and efficiency will help you sell more cars at a higher profit potential. So when we take a look at that, I wanted to show you guys some quick math. We kind of talked about in the objectives, we'd look at some calculations. So the average spread between the wholesale pricing and the retail asking price is on average, and again, these are averages, about $3,400. But then you need to take into consideration, what about transportation? What about reconditioning? Again, on average, our industry experts have told us it's approximately $1,150. So many dealers apply a pack to the vehicle. That average is about $750, but that could vary. We've seen it anywhere from $400 or $500 to over $1,000. And then what about average customer discount? That's typically about $600. So when we look at the whole process, that puts you on average $900 for your front end gross profit, right? That's pretty good. Some people say it's $300, $400, $500. Some dealers tell us it's over $1,000, but 900 is a pretty good number within the industry to look at. But now let's take into account our previous slide that showed us that if you keep the car for 28 days before you put it for sale and your holding cost is $26 a day, after that $900 front end gross profit, what happens with the cost of the $728? Because you had that car for 28 days before it actually went for sale. What if you could decrease that 28 days? Now that's only at a $26 holding cost. What if your holding costs were $35 a day? Then at that point, that puts you closer to $1,000 in costs. And with a $900 front end gross profit, where are you at this particular stage? So in looking at processes and efficiencies, that absolutely is extremely important, but you really want to spend time focusing on your customer, because if you can make the customer feel good about you, about the dealership, they're going to want to buy more vehicles for you. But how do you do that? Dealers who have a large focus on customers have told us that they look for ways to save time in all of their processes. And when they do that, then what they're doing is they fill in the gaps to then create more efficiencies. That then reduces overhead, and you have less to worry about and more time to actually focus on the customer. And if you can focus on the customer, we can sell more vehicles and have a higher profit potential. So what better time than now, based on the industry, to actually look at your processes? It's a great time to review those. Some of them may be great, some of them you might be able to tweak a little bit, but it's a great time based on the industry to look at your used vehicle processes. So let's get into the used vehicle life cycle. We're going to start with acquisitions. That's really what we look for first, right? We have to acquire the car, or maybe it's a trade-in, but let's say that we're acquiring the car. How do we go about doing that? What are some of the things that you should think about? Well, you're probably wondering, which vehicles sell fast? Can I get the car for the right price? Will I find it near me? Is it in my market, or I'm going to have to go somewhere else? And then what is the amount of recon that's needed on the vehicle? So acquiring the right vehicles is key to the overall process. So with acquisitions, it can obviously be very challenging. There's a lot of things to keep in mind. But here's several things to consider. What is the market viability? This is a key contributor to online traffic as well as traffic into your store. Understanding the right inventory to obtain will get you the better vehicles to drive that traffic. Historical performance. This is important from a standpoint of turning your inventory and turning it quickly. So when you look at historical performance, you probably want to look at anywhere from 30 to 60 days. We've seen 45 days mentioned a lot. Again, this is just an average. You want to base it on your market, but going too far back may not help you as much as you may need. So you probably want to keep it around 30 to 60 days on average is what's suggested. Then the speed to market. how quickly from the time that you buy the vehicle to the time that it's ready for sale, what is that time? And we just spent a little bit of time talking about that. We're looking at 28 days, but how can you get that lower? And then you want to consider the size and the scale of your sourcing network. What auctions are you looking at? Are you looking at online sales? Are you looking at closed sales? Are you looking just within your market? Are you looking outside of your market? Where are you looking for all of these vehicles? So another study, actually the same study we looked at earlier, told us that only 52% of you are satisfied with your current wholesale buying process. Now, the previous slide that we talked about, which is the same study, showed us that 72% of all dealers say they manage their own wholesale buying activities internally. So if only half of you are satisfied with the current buying process, that means that almost half of you are not. And that's a great opportunity for improvement. You can enhance your processes, make things quicker, sell more vehicles, and have more profitability. So what other things should be considered when you're looking at purchasing a vehicle? Well, we all know about market day supply, right? And that's one thing that we definitely have to consider. It's good to consider it on a per car basis. So you look at the supply and the demand of used vehicles based off of the number of the same competing units, and then you look at the sales of that same general vehicle for the past 45 days, and that gives you your market day supply. So as an example, if you have 10 identically equipped vehicles for sale in the market currently, and if you look at those same vehicles on what they sold, the ones that were for sale in the past 45 days, and when you look at the historical performance, they sold at 1 a day, then you divide the 10 that's currently available now by the historical performance of 1 a day, and now you're really deriving a 10 market day supply of that vehicle. Well, 10 would be great. I use that number because it's very easy to show the calculations. But the top 60 dealers actually average 69 days. So that's a great benchmark for you to start from when you're looking at market days supply. What other things can you do? Well, a lot of dealers use stocking tools, but what do they use the stocking tools for? Well, it tells them what do you know? How do you know exactly what to buy, right? Sometimes dealers will go to the auction, they'll run their lists, they'll have it in front of them, they'll highlight what they're looking for, they'll look at previous sales. If you had some sort of stocking tool to help you get to that point much quicker, then your process, your efficiency will get you to where you want to go much quicker. So you do know where to buy these cars. So stocking tools give you the efficiency to look at where can I buy these cars? Rather than looking at the entire spectrum, it will bring that down to you to a more manageable area of where can I find this vehicle. And then obviously you want to buy it at the right price, because that is key to making sure that you have profitability on the back end, right? So what's your pricing strategy? Stocking tools can help you with that again. And then obviously with stocking tools, when you do all these, it helps you do the whole process much faster. And speaking of faster, how many of you use online buying channels? How many of you currently do that? Great. You know what the industry tells us? That online buying channels are a great way to go because you can do that without ever having to leave your dealership, right? You can expand your buying radius. You have access to more vehicles, right? So I bet some of you are going, well, that sounds all great, but what about the risk of buying a vehicle sight unseen, right? Am I right? Yes. So in a few slides, we're actually going to take a look at how you can mitigate those risks, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But it's interesting, I didn't quite see a third of you raising your hands, but a third of the dealerships attend a simulcast auction every month. And a simulcast auction is simply an extension of the actual physical auction. So if only a third of dealers are actually using this tool, you could still use this tool now and be ahead of the industry. And where could that get you for quicker, faster speed, simplicity, and efficiency, right? So whether you're buying online or at the auction or closed sale or anywhere else, strategic bidding is going to be extremely important. So you have to carefully consider your acquisition budget. So when you look at what price do I want to pay for a car, have you looked at what are the reconditioning costs? What are my other costs? What investments am I making into the vehicle? And by taking those things into consideration, you can help decide what price do I want to pay for this vehicle, and then figure out what price are these vehicles selling for now so that you can get to the right strategic price. So a little bit earlier we talked about buy online. It's a great opportunity to get access to more vehicles. And I saw a few of you kind of, ooh, I don't know about that, there's some risk to that. There is, but there's also risk to buying at the auction even if you see the vehicle up front. So what can you do to mitigate those? Well, condition reports. Are you using condition reports to review what the vehicle is and what type of recon work, how much you need to spend to get that done? If you're doing that, that can help you put in a much better strategic bid to hit your pricing strategies. So after you buy the vehicle, what about post-sale inspections? Now, we don't have to do post-sale inspections on every vehicle, maybe just some of the ones that you're nervous about, but many of the dealers have told us it's well worth the low cost of the post-sale inspections. And then what about purchase protection? When you're buying a vehicle, can you use some sort of purchase protection product in case you find something with the vehicle once you've bought it? These are all ways for you to mitigate your risks with either buying online or actually buying at the dealer or a closed sale. Most of these things are available no matter how you purchase the car. So now we've acquired the car, right? So now we have to get it to where we're going to recon the vehicle. A lot of people skip over the inspection part of the vehicle. Well, you really want to pay attention to how well am I inspecting the vehicle? How much time am I spending? Who's doing the mechanical inspection? Do you have your brand new tech that just came from the tech college do your inspection? Do you have your master mechanic do your inspection? Do you have somebody in the middle of those do your inspection? It's important to decide what type of person and experience you're going to have doing your inspections. And then what about checking for recalls? What is the process that you use to check for recalls? So why do you want to make sure you put all this effort into inspections? Well, safety is a big part of that. And if the vehicle is safe, you'll actually increase your customer satisfaction, right? It'll look great, the customer will feel good about it, and if you really do a good inspection and you recon the car correctly and detail it, the customer's going to feel really good about having a vehicle. And then from a safety perspective, you have less comebacks. And customers are more satisfied when they don't have to bring their vehicle, their used vehicle, back to the dealership. So less comebacks equals increased customer satisfaction. And then less comebacks reduces your costs. So all of that is a great opportunity to start the recon process off correctly. So what are some of the best practices from a retail inspection standpoint? These best practices here can be used for the entire recon process. So this is not necessarily just for inspections. It also can be used for the entire recon process. So, do you have specific systems and processes that are utilized each and every day? Why do you want to do that? Well, if you're doing the same process, the same system every day, you tend to get very good at it. And by doing the same thing all the time, it's much easier to notice those areas of opportunity where you can enhance your process. Then with these systems and processes, do you have dedicated personnel? Do you have the same group of people overseeing the whole inspection process? Well, why is that important? If the same people do it all the time, they know the process, they know what you're looking for, they know the quality. Again, speed, simplicity, and efficiency. What about technology for inspections and estimating? A lot of people still like to use paper. I still like to use paper for a lot of things as well. But from an inspection standpoint, let's say that you did use some sort of technology. So you're doing the inspection, you do it on a tablet. Well, how does that help you? Well, from an estimating standpoint, much of the technology out there, you can take your inspection, download it into an estimate, you can pick and choose what you want to recon, and then you're done. No writing an estimate, no figuring out what you want. Much easier. Again, speed, simplicity, and efficiency. So now that you've done the whole inspection process, what about reconditioning? So how quickly are you getting your cars reconned and detailed? Right? There's all kind of articles, all kind of experts saying it should be this many days, it should be this many days. But what are the things that you truly are thinking about when you are reconning vehicles? So how long should it take? On average, again, these are averages, experts tell us that it should be 7 to 10 days from the retail inspection to the time the full retail ready detail is complete, right? But we all know this can vary. Some of you are going, well, my friend tells me it only takes 3 days. Well, my friend down the road tells me, God, it takes them 15 days. Well, is that good or bad? It really depends. And why does it depend? So if you buy older vehicles, if you have high reconditioning standards, right, spend a lot of time on the detail, some dealers tell us that that could take 15 days or so. And they're actually happy with that. They have processes, and that's the best that they can do. And for their customer and what they're trying to do, 15's okay. Now, some dealers buy much newer vehicles. They make sure they buy vehicles without a lot of reconditioning, right? They look good already. There's not a lot of detail work to be done. Do you know what those dealers tell us they recon the car in? 3 or 4 days. So how can you spread from 3 days to 15 days? Again, there's no right or wrong answer. It's based off of the vehicle that you buy, older or newer, how much recon's needed, and then what your standard of reconditioning the vehicle will be. What if you could take 4 days away from your recon days? So obviously if you're already at 3 or 4 days, you can't take 4 days away. But most dealers tell us they're probably between the 9 and 12 days. This says 7 to 10, but a lot of times when we speak to people, they tell us 9 to 12. So what if you could take 4 days out of that? What would you see? And we'll take a look at that actually in a minute. So why do you want some sort of retail-ready reconditioning? So think about mechanical, body paint, and detail. Is it all in one location, or is it at several? If it's at several, what about transportation from this facility to this facility, maybe back to your dealership? And then what about the employees? Who handles the transportation, right? Is that somebody that has another job? And what about doing it at the dealership? Setting priorities for customer pay versus used vehicle recon. There's a lot of friction between those many times. So I have 2 scenarios to share with you. So let's say dealer A reconditions their vehicle in several different places. So they've purchased the vehicle, now they have to arrange transportation, right? So it comes to their lot, they do the retail inspection, and then let's say that they do the mechanical work on their lot, right? But now they have to take it somewhere else to go to the body shop, right? So how long does it take to transport it to the body shop? Who are they going to use? Now they have to get somebody, they have to transport it to the body shop, it gets to the body shop. No one that you know is really overseeing that process on an hourly, daily basis. So how long is it really taking at the body shop? Is there somebody that's really focused on getting that car through quickly? Okay, so it's done, right? Do they call you right away? Do they call you the next day? How much time are you missing in there? And then now that vehicle has to be transported back to your dealership. What about your detail lane? Is it full? Does it have customer pay? Is it ready to go in right now? What's the process there? And then once it's detailed, what about merchandising? Who's going to merchandise it? Who's going to get the keys? Who's going to take the images? So you can see how this process can really take a long time. It can include a lot of people, and it can be somewhat cumbersome. So it was interesting to me. I saw an article recently that spoke to a dealership who decided to do their reconditioning off-site. So with this dealership, they built their own recon center. And I know some of you are thinking, ooh, that's a lot of money, that's a lot of capital. Just go with me so we can get conceptually. Whether you build your own or you outsource the reconditioning, let's kind of think about what does that look like if I can recondition my vehicles off-site all in the same place. Well, this dealer, what they found was, after they started doing that, it is shown that their used vehicle sales went up by 30%. Service sales, customer pay, went up by 25%. So why do you think that is? Well, without all of the used vehicles on their lot, they had more room to park vehicles that were actually ready for sale. They had their used car people focusing on the customers, selling more vehicles, so their used vehicle sales went up by 30%. And what about the service revenue? Well, there was no more friction between customer pay and used cars. Which one do I take right now? Which one's more important? Their service sales went up 25%, right? So what a great opportunity. So now scenario 2 is you purchase a vehicle, you get it transported, it goes to an off-site reconditioning facility, whether it's your own or you outsource it to an off-site reconditioning facility. And think about it this way, it gets there, the retail inspection is done pretty quickly because that's what's happening there. It goes about 50 feet to the mechanical shop, that stuff's done, goes maybe another 50, 100 feet to the body shop or PDR, whatever is good for the recon. Then it goes right around the corner, same property, to detail. Now your vehicle is done. And just imagine, what if you could take the images right then and there? What if you could get it online before your vehicle even hits the dealership? So your vehicle could be ready to sell before it even hits the dealership. And we'll touch on that point a little bit more in merchandising. So we talked a little bit about off-site reconditioning. That included a dedicated team, but I also wanted to touch on, what if it's not off-site? What if it is? But why is a dedicated team important? If you separate the team from customer pay and other work, you have speed, simplicity, and efficiency. So for example, the CPO 2016 Dealer of the Year, they have a team, they have a dedicated team to certify pre-owned vehicles, plus that includes a dedicated CPO recon manager that's specifically assigned to the task. Now, this dealer hit record highs of sales for CPO volume. So why is that important? Why should we be thinking CPO? Well, 70% of shoppers are willing to pay premium for CPO units. This was in several auto remarketing articles, and this was in several other articles. And why is that important? Well, we know there's a lot of off-lease vehicles, right? These are prime suspects for more CPO vehicles. And CPO vehicles a lot of times mean more profitability. So what are the keys? So retail reconditioning, how efficient are you? What are your processes, right? The more efficient, more processes you have, can you still keep the quality? High quality. Good processes meaning high quality. And good prices and high quality means speed. And that's very important. So the benefits, obviously, a good retail reconditioning, it can enhance the vehicle value. It will accelerate your sales time, and it supports residual values. And that's really important because with more used vehicles coming off, we want to do everything that we can to help support the residual values, right? So I touched on some points in merchandising in the last one, but let's take a little look at some merchandising items. How's your merchandising handled? How long does it take you to get it online, right? How long does it take you to get the images online, right? This is actually key. When you get the images online, is key to how quickly you can sell the vehicle. Who likes to go to a website looking for cars and there's a car there and it says, images coming soon? How many of you just skip over that one, right? Yeah, I do too. So how long, what's the average number of days should it take you to get the images online? We probably would all say 0, right? There was a study that was done, and 4 is the average number of days to get images online, but that's only for the top 20% dealers. Does anybody know how long it took all dealers on average to get the images online? 12.5 days. Can you imagine 12.5 days? Was the vehicle online? Did the customer see images coming soon? How often did they really look at the vehicle, right? So it's important to get it online quickly so that you can sell the vehicle much faster. So a few other things to consider, we'll go through real quick, is your cost to market. So what is that? Just your cost to own and recondition the vehicle and what the current retail prices are. So our top 60 dealers, their cost to market is 88%. So what's the benchmark? The benchmark's actually 85%. So our top 60 dealers are doing much better from a cost to market standpoint. So that's a benchmark that you probably want to look at. What about price to market? Right? So the top 60 dealers, 98%. Great benchmark to shoot for. So when we're looking at that, getting your pictures online is important. So I want to show you kind of an example here. So let's take dealer A. What's the average number of days it takes them to get the photos on the website? On theirs, it's 1. On any third-party providers, it's 1. And the average number of days in inventory was only 22. So what about dealer B, which studies tell us that dealer B is actually more of the average than dealer A. So on average, it takes a lot of dealers 11 days to get their photos on their internal website. Sometimes it's only 9 days for third-party websites. And what's their average turn? 35 days. Some of you might be thinking, well, 35 days is not too bad. That used to be a good, decent number, but obviously we want to try to turn the inventory in 30 days. So the point here is to get your vehicles online. And what can you do to get them online quickly? Some people start to recondition their vehicles. When it gets to a certain part in the reconditioning process, They may do a good part of the detail, and then they take the photos, right? They get the photos online, they finish reconditioning the vehicle, and the photos are online before the vehicle's even finished and it gets to the retail lot. So just a few ideas to take back with you on how to get your images online quickly. So we're just going to quickly touch on transportation. You just really want to think about how can you optimize the whole transportation process. Take some time to kind of look at it, tweak it, review what your processes are for. And we have seen that most dealers will use one of three kind of different methods. Do you use a full service method? Do you use a self-service method? Or do you really do most of your transportation internally? And if you handle it internally, who handles that? Half of the dealers that were surveyed told them that they handle their transportation internally, solely. So who are you having do that? Would it pay to do full service or self-service and let somebody else coordinate that? That might save you quite a bit of time, right? Speaking of time, what's the average delivery time? Right? So if you're looking for full service or self-service, what company are you working with? What's their average delivery time? Average delivery time is not the only thing that you want to look at. How much time are you spending doing that versus saying, hey, company A, I need these transported. How quickly can you get them to me, right? So as we wrap this up, look at this all together, I want to bring us back to focusing on the customer. We spent a lot of time talking about processes, efficiency, speed, simplicity, and that's all important, but we do that so we can spend more time on the customer, right? You want to save time, you want to fill in the gaps, you want to gain efficiencies, and you want to reduce your overhead so you truly can spend more time on the customer. So what are your keys to success, right? Do you have a comprehensive strategy? We talked about a lot of different things. Now, comprehensive doesn't necessarily mean it has to be complex. We want it to be simplistic. Remember, speed, simplicity, and efficiency, comprehensive but simplistic. Are you utilizing some of the industry-leading practices? And we talked about a few of those here, as well as efficient operational processes. How often are you looking at your processes and seeing where you can actually make them better? Many of you have some great processes, right? But with the number of used cars coming off, what can you do to do even better than your neighbor? So with that, that all translates to speed, simplicity, and efficiency, right? And what does that give you? That gives you more cars that you've sold, and it gives you higher profitability. And I know that all of us want that. So is there really a better time than now to look at your processes and see what you can do to enhance them? Probably not, with the number of used vehicles that are coming into the market, the number of off-lease vehicles that are coming into the market, right? That's going to increase competition. Those dealers with efficient processes that save time and get their vehicles out quickly, they're going to win more customers, right? And more customers and more profitability is really where we want to be. So thank you all. Those were some great questions. I really appreciate you coming here today. Hope we have provided you with some good information and some good takeaways on things that you can take back to your dealership. So I appreciate it, enjoyed the time with you guys today. And of course, if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you. Have a great day.